Have you ever felt like life is just too heavy? Like the weight of everything you're carrying is too much to bear, and you're not sure how much longer you can keep going? In today's prayer, we're going to talk about how to find strength in God when you feel like you can't stand on your own. This isn't just another prayer, it's a moment of deep connection, a time to reflect on how God is always by your side, even when everything around you feels impossible. I put everything into creating this video because I know there are so many of you out there who feel broken, lost, or weary. I want you to know that you're not alone. Through this powerful prayer, you will find peace and strength that only God can provide. No matter what you're going through, this moment is for you. I truly believe that by the end of this time together, you will feel uplifted, renewed, and ready to face whatever comes next. Stay with us, and may you feel the presence of Jesus standing with you, right where you need Him most. There was a time in my life when everything felt unbearable. I was facing a storm of unexpected challenges, and no matter how hard I worked, how much effort I put in, nothing seemed to change. Every day felt like a battle that I couldn't win, and the more I tried, the deeper I sank into a place of hopelessness. I found myself overwhelmed, drowning in a sea of fear, uncertainty, and exhaustion. It was as if the weight of the world was resting on my shoulders, and I didn't have the strength to carry it anymore. I remember one evening in particular, when I reached my breaking point. The tears flowed freely, not because I had all the answers or because I was looking for sympathy, but because I had reached a place where I felt truly helpless. I had been fighting, pushing, trying to be strong, but I couldn't do it alone anymore. I sat there in the quiet, utterly drained, and finally whispered those words, "Give me strength, Lord." And in that moment, something shifted. It wasn't as if everything suddenly became easy. The situation didn't change overnight. But somehow, I felt a sense of peace that I had been desperately searching for. It was as though God's love enveloped me, and for the first time in a long while, I knew I wasn't alone. I realized that I didn't need to fix everything myself, I didn't have to carry the burden alone. In that moment of weakness, God's presence became my refuge. I could almost feel Him beside me, lifting the weight off my shoulders, whispering, "You don't have to do this alone." And that was the turning point. The burden didn't go away right away, but my heart was lightened. I could breathe again. God's strength became my strength. It didn't matter how difficult the road was ahead, I knew He was walking beside me, guiding me with His love and peace. I'm sharing this story with you because I know there are times when life feels like too much. When you're trying your best, working harder, doing everything you can, but it feels like you're hitting a wall. I've been there. And it's in those moments of vulnerability, when we finally admit that we can't do it alone, that God steps in and makes all the difference. His strength is made perfect in our weakness. If you're facing a struggle right now, I want you to hear this: you are not alone. God sees your pain. He hears your cries. And just like He met me in my moment of despair, He will meet you. His peace will surround you. He will give you the strength to keep going, even when you feel like you have nothing left. The burden may not immediately disappear, but His presence will carry you through it. You can trust in His timing, in His wisdom, and in His love. I know how hard it is to be in that place of struggle, but I also know that it's in those moments that we grow the most. When we realize that we can't rely on our own strength, we begin to understand just how much we need God. And it's in that surrender, that letting go, that we find the true freedom and peace that only He can provide. So, if you're at the end of your rope, I encourage you to call out to God. Let Him meet you in your weakness. Let His love be your refuge. He's always there, ready to give you the strength you need to face whatever lies ahead. Because with God by your side, you can face anything. In Psalm 55:22, we are given a powerful promise: cast your burden on the Lord, and He will sustain you. This is not just a verse, it is a promise of hope and reassurance. When life becomes too overwhelming, when we feel like we can't carry the weight of our struggles any longer, this verse reminds us that we do not have to bear the burden alone. God will take it from us and give us the strength to move forward. I've experienced this firsthand, and it's a truth that has deeply changed my life. I remember a time when I was facing an incredible challenge. Everything seemed to be falling apart. I had tried so hard to keep things together, to fix what was broken, but it felt like nothing worked. I came to a place where I was utterly exhausted and felt like I couldn't take another step. It was in that moment of utter weakness that I whispered, "Lord, I can't do this on my own. Please help me." And in that instant, I felt God's presence in a way I had never experienced before. It wasn't that my problems vanished immediately, but His peace settled over me like a warm embrace, and I knew I wasn't alone. That was when I realized that God truly does sustain us in our weakest moments. His strength became my strength. Isaiah 40:29 reinforces this. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might He increases strength. When we are at our lowest, God's power is made perfect. This is not just a theoretical idea, this is a life-changing truth. I've learned that when I am weak, it is precisely in those moments that God's grace and strength are most apparent. I no longer have to rely on my own strength, but I can depend on the Lord to carry me through. Sometimes, the most powerful prayers are the simplest ones. I remember one of the most profound prayers I ever said. It was when I had no words left, when I was completely at my breaking point. I simply whispered, "Help me, Lord." Those 3 words were all I could muster, but they were enough. God heard me, and in that moment, His grace poured over me. It was as if He was saying, "You don't have to be strong on your own. I'm here." There's another moment I remember vividly, when I was grappling with a decision that seemed impossible. I had no idea what to do, and every choice felt uncertain. I spent hours praying, not for answers right away, but just asking God to give me His peace and guidance. After a long, quiet prayer, I felt this incredible sense of calm come over me, and it became clear that God had been working in my heart all along. I didn't have all the answers right then, but I knew He would lead me. And He did, in ways that I couldn't have imagined. This is the beauty of God's grace. He meets us in our weakness, not to shame us, but to fill us with His love, strength, and wisdom. I've learned that the key to true strength is not in my ability to control or fix everything, but in my willingness to surrender to Him. When I allow God to take control, He does more than just solve my problems. He transforms my heart, my faith, and my perspective. The love of Jesus, the love that gave everything on the cross, becomes my anchor and my source of strength. I have witnessed God's grace in the most intimate and unexpected ways, and it all starts with surrendering. Each time I have been on my knees in prayer, asking for help, God has responded not just with solutions, but with His presence. In those moments, I am reminded that faith is not about having all the answers or being strong enough to handle everything. It's about trusting that God is good, that He is faithful, and that His grace will always be sufficient. If you are in a place of weakness today, if you feel like you can't go on, I want you to know that God is with you. His grace is sufficient for you. You don't need to have the perfect prayer or the perfect words, just open your heart and invite Him in. Let Him carry your burden. I promise you, there is no greater comfort than knowing that God is standing beside you, ready to give you His strength. Remember, as Philippians 4:13 reminds us, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Even in your weakest moments, God's strength is more than enough to carry you through. His grace will sustain you, His love will guide you, and His presence will be your refuge. You are not alone, and you never will be. Trust in His love, and surrender your burdens to Him today. Remember, God doesn't just want to hear from you when you're struggling. He wants to be your constant source of strength, peace, and guidance. A few years ago, I met a woman named Mary, who had been battling anxiety for months. She felt isolated, believing that she could only turn to God when things were falling apart. But one day, she realized that she was neglecting her relationship with God in her daily life. So, she decided to begin praying not just when she was overwhelmed, but every day, asking God to fill her heart with His peace and strength. Over time, this daily connection with God began to change her life. Her anxiety lessened because she was no longer relying solely on her own strength, but on God's unwavering presence. That's why it's so important to turn to Him in prayer, not just in moments of crisis, but in every moment of life. Life has a way of distracting us: work, family, responsibilities, they all demand our attention. But one day, I was reminded of a story about a man named Thomas, who had been running on autopilot for years, focusing on everything except his relationship with God. It wasn't until he lost his job and felt completely lost that he realized how much he had neglected his spiritual life. Thomas started to pray every morning, asking God to guide him and give him strength for the day. His prayers weren't elaborate, they were simple words like, "Lord, help me find peace today," but they made all the difference. Through his daily prayers, he found clarity and direction, and God's grace began to guide him even through the most challenging days. I encourage you to ask God to fill you with His peace, His strength, and His grace every day. Just as a plant needs sunlight and water to grow, your spiritual life needs daily nourishment through prayer. I remember a time when I was feeling drained and weary. One evening, after a long day of feeling overwhelmed, I sat down in a quiet space and prayed, "Lord, please fill me with your strength." It wasn't a dramatic prayer, but something shifted in my heart. The peace I felt in that moment was enough to carry me through the next steps of my journey. Surrender your burdens to God daily, and trust that He will carry you through. I once heard someone share a powerful story about a man who had been struggling with a heavy load. He was tired, and the weight seemed unbearable. But as he walked along, he came across a place where he could set down his load. He decided to leave his burden at the foot of the cross, trusting that God would bear it for him. That day, he walked away with a lighter heart and a renewed sense of peace. This is what happens when we surrender to God. He takes the weight off our shoulders and gives us His strength to move forward. Every single day is an opportunity to deepen your relationship with God. Just as we wouldn't want to ignore someone we love, we shouldn't ignore the one who loves us unconditionally. I recall a story of a friend who, despite a busy schedule, made it a habit to carve out time in the mornings for a quiet prayer. She'd take a few minutes each day, even before getting out of bed, to say, "Lord, be with me today." It wasn't long before she noticed a shift in her attitude, her outlook on the day, and even her patience with others. She was no longer rushing through life without God's guidance. He was her anchor in every moment. Don't let the distractions of daily life pull you away from the one who sustains you, the one who will never leave you or forsake you. There's a story of a man named Jacob who, overwhelmed by life's demands, began to distance himself from God. However, after experiencing a series of challenges, Jacob realized that he had been walking through life without seeking God's guidance. He returned to daily prayer, inviting God back into every part of his life. His life didn't magically become perfect, but he found a sense of purpose and peace that had been missing. Take time to pray, even when life seems manageable, and invite Him into every aspect of your life. You are not meant to walk through life alone. God is with you, every step of the way. I'll never forget when I heard a story of a mother juggling the demands of raising children and maintaining a career. In the middle of her busy routine, she took a moment every day to pray, asking for God's strength and patience. It was through these moments of prayer, even in the midst of chaos, that she found peace and the ability to continue. God was her constant companion, helping her to navigate every challenge with grace and strength. Remember, just like any relationship, the more time you spend with God, the more you'll experience His love and peace. So, no matter what today holds, take a moment to invite God into it. He is waiting to guide you, strengthen you, and walk with you through every step. I invite you to pause for a moment and reflect on your own struggles. Think about those times when life feels heavy, when you're carrying burdens that seem too much to bear. How often do you find yourself trying to manage them alone, believing that if you just push a little harder or try a little more, you'll get through? I've been there too, feeling like I had to handle everything myself, afraid to show weakness, afraid to admit I needed help. But let me tell you, in those moments of isolation and pressure, I learned that trying to bear it all on my own only made the weight heavier. Now, I've realized something incredibly freeing. What if we didn't have to carry our struggles alone? What if, instead of hiding our burdens or trying to push through in our own strength, we brought them before God, trusting that He will not only lighten our load but also give us the strength to face whatever comes our way? This simple truth has made all the difference in my life, knowing that I don't have to be in control of everything, and that there's a God who is willing to carry the weight for me. I want you to think about what it would look like to bring your burdens to God today. To take that step of faith, knowing that He's right there beside you, ready to help. The challenges you're facing might not disappear overnight, but the peace that comes from surrendering to Him, knowing you don't have to carry the weight alone, will fill you with a strength you never thought possible. Take a moment now to pray, even if it's just a simple prayer. Lord, I can't do this on my own. Please give me the strength to carry on. It doesn't need to be a long, eloquent prayer, just a genuine cry from the heart. And as you do, remember that every time you release your burdens to God, you're making room for His peace and His power to work in your life. I promise, you'll find a sense of hope and strength that only comes from trusting in Him. You don't have to do this alone. God is with you, and He will give you everything you need to move forward. Dear Lord, thank you for being there in my times of need. I confess that there are moments when I feel overwhelmed, lost, and uncertain, but I trust that you are always by my side. Please give me the strength to endure every challenge I face and help me to lean on you, not just in times of crisis, but in every moment. You are my refuge, my strength, and my help in times of trouble. I surrender all my burdens to you today, trusting that you will sustain me. In Jesus' name, Amen. Remember, you are not alone. No matter what you face today, bring it to God. Lay your burdens at His feet, and trust that He is with you, guiding you through every storm. You may not always see the way, but He does. He is your help, your strength, and your peace.